Let's go now to our guest for some analysis. Gong is in Tel Aviv. He's professor of economics at University of International Business and Economics in Beijing. John, welcome to the program. What is your takeaway from President Xi's meetings with President Biden, of course, on Monday, and then with U.S. allies Tuesday, today?
Well, I think these meetings are extremely important, at least as far as the United States are concerned. The meeting between President Xi and Joe Biden, at the very least, stabilizes this relationship. In Washington's words, it sets some guardrails, it sets the floor, and I think at least it is very constructive in that regard. There are also a couple of concrete issues coming out of the agreements coming out of the meeting. For example, Antony Blinken is going to come to China in January, which is a very good sign in my view. It is also reported on both sides that the higher government level communications channels will be resumed. The talks will be resumed. I think this is also a very good sign. So I think, and also I think what's very significant is that both sides agreed upon the opposition to the to the use of nuclear weapons or the threat of the use of nuclear weapons to Ukraine by Russia. So I think these are all very good signs, and I think at least these are things to be interpreted as very positive.
John, listening to President Biden yesterday, the tone was certainly positive, even optimistic. As you mentioned, the progress was certainly made here. I want to quote something President Biden said. He said, "I absolutely believe there need not to be a new Cold War." Do you believe China perhaps shares that same level of optimism?
Well, China shares well beyond that optimism, actually. Going to the meeting, the U.S. side's desire would be at least to set the guardrails, as I said, set the floor. But I think China is actually looking for more than that. As plainly expressed in President Xi's own words, China is looking for the development of the bilateral relationship between the United States and China, set it on the right direction. So I think certainly, from Beijing's perspective, is expecting more. Whether it gets that, I think, it's an entirely different story. But at least there are some positive signs that we can see from this meeting.
And I want to move on to Ukraine, John. The crisis looming large over G20, and most leaders have condemned the war. Not all, though, have. What will a final statement look like to you, and how important is a united front at a global gathering like this when it comes to ending this crisis?
I'm not sure about the exact wordings of the joint statement, if indeed it is going to be one. We have to keep in mind that some of the countries in G20 have different positions with respect to this war, as reflected in their votes in the original United Nations General Assembly resolution. So, I think that position held by countries, respectively by countries, would most likely continue. So certainly I don't see a prospect of jointly condemning Russia, for example, in this pending resolution, if it's going to come, or joint statement if it's going to ever come. But I think there could be some call for peace, for example, call for stop of the war. I think every country shares that sentiment, so there might be still something in common coming out of the agreement.